Hey everybody, Brandon here from CAD Intentions, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing 10 unknown commands and tools in AutoCAD that are guaranteed to save you time. Let's jump right into today's video. So first up, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of commands that are going to help you when dealing with external references or nested objects within AutoCAD, and that first one is going to be something called XLIST. So if you type in the command XLIST and hit enter, this is going to allow you to select any object that is either within a block or within an XREF in your drawing, and it's going to tell you some properties about it. So you can see this grayed out area here. These walls are part of a floor plan XREF. Clicking it is going to bring up the object list, and it's going to tell you the settings for this object within the XREF. So it saves you the time of opening up an XREF to check things, and this is super useful if you want to change some of the settings. So it's going to give you the layer that it's on, as well as how the settings of these objects are set up in that XREF drawing. So by looking at this list, you know right away that you can change the color in your drawing because the color property of these objects is set to by layer, same as the line type. So if you go to this layer in your current drawing and change those properties, the display of those properties will change in your drawing, but these changes won't affect the original XREF. This is also great if you want to freeze or turn off specific layers and you don't know what layer these objects are on. Use the XLIST command and just simply click on the object, and it's going to give you these properties even if they're not in your drawing. Because if I select this, I'm not getting any of the properties of these individual objects, I'm getting the properties of the external reference, or in the case of a block, the same thing. I'm only going to get the properties of the block. So this block is on the chair's layer, but if I type in XLIST and select the chair again, it's actually on layer 0, so it's using layer 0, which for blocks means that it's going to adapt or adopt the settings of whatever layer these objects are on. So if I put my chair on the chair's layer, it's going to adapt and adopt the chair layer color, line type, and styles. So that's the first command, XLIST. Not many users know it, but it is super useful, especially if you're working with large drawings with a ton of XREFs and references in it. This is going to just save you a ton of time so that you know what's on what layer, especially if you're going to edit them or change them up through the layer properties. Keeping things moving along, since I want to fit all 10 of these tips into about a 10-minute video, let's keep it moving. The next command is the NCOPY command, and this is similarly related to XREFs and nested objects, and what it's going to do is copy objects out of your XREF into your current drawing or out of a block into your current drawing. This is super useful if, say, there's a block or object in your XREF and you don't want to open up that XREF, copy it, bring it into your drawing. You can just simply use the NCOPY command, hit enter, and select an object that's within an XREF and hit enter. This is going to bring it into your drawing. It's going to ask for your base point. If you just hit enter twice, it's going to put it in the same spot. So you can see these lines from my XREF are now copied into my drawing. You can do this with all kinds of objects. You can do this with text. So say I want to bring this hatch into this drawing, type in NCOPY, hit enter, select the objects you want to bring in, and then hit enter twice to use the base point of 0, 0, 0, 0. So that's going to keep it in the same spot. Or you can choose a new base point. This is now basically just a copy command, but hitting enter twice is going to keep them in the same place. You can see now these objects have been copied into my drawing, all of these hatches for those rooms, but it doesn't affect the XREF. So if you want to layer in and bring in some XREFs, copy a few objects in, and then detach or disconnect that XREF, you can still have that object or those line works and blocks in your drawing without having to open and copy objects back and forth. This one is super useful and a huge time saver for those drawings where you're using a lot of XREFs and just need to grab, say, a simple little like manhole block or a piece of the wall or a door. And moving on, we're going to check out the oops command. And the fun thing with the oops command is that I'm going to show it to you in a little bit of a roundabout method. So we're going to zoom into this office plan here, and I'm going to show you another command in conjunction with oops. So to start off here, we're going to select our chair block and simply hit delete. Now we've deleted that, we don't need it, it's out of our drawing, and we're going to come back to that in about a minute. So onto our next command and tool, and that is using Control and H to activate and deactivate groups instantly within AutoCAD. This one's a huge time saver, especially if you're using groups within AutoCAD. I explained this in 2 weeks ago video, so I'll put a link to that, or you can search it up on the channel. It's blocks versus groups, but basically a group is any amount of objects in AutoCAD and selected, and then you group them together so that they move and act like one big object, but all of these individual blocks and objects are still in the drawing and on their own. So select a handful of objects, type in group, and hit enter. So now I've got a group. The vertex is going to be kind of the center point of the mass of your objects, and you can see I could easily now select this group and copy it, CO, and move it around to other rooms that it fits in. You can see I could put it over here. This is just a great way to keep like or similar objects that you're working on, or different groupings like a room layout, together without having to create a custom block. Groups are especially helpful when you're in the concept and kind of working out phase. And then once you've got this locked down, you could make a custom block with attributes and stuff like that to speed things up in the future. But for one-offs, groups are awesome. Now comes that command. So if you hold down Control and tap H, you're actually just turning off the function of groups, but you're not breaking any of your groups. So you can see here, groups are deactivated because I hit Control and H, but I could just tap Control and or hold Control and tap H, and now groups are turned back on. So this is a great way to quickly move and adjust objects within your group. So I've turned it off. I'm going to move my computer over here. Now I've turned it back on. My group is now active again. So you can tell that this is a pretty easy way to save time, and it's just one of those quick commands that not many people know, but it's going to save you a ton of typing if you were previously grouping and ungrouping and selecting, and this is just a great way to tweak that group without editing anything else. A huge time saver. Now, here's the trick. Let's go back to that oops command. So if we simply type in oops and hit enter, you can see that our chair came back. So oops is like an undo, but it's only for deleted objects. So if you delete or remove an object from your drawing, you can hit the oops or type in the oops command no matter how far you go in the process of drawing and editing your drawing, as long as you haven't deleted anything else. I find this to be one of the most fun and unique commands within the software. Being able to just type oops, even 5 or 10 or 15 minutes later in the process, as long as you haven't deleted anything else in your drawing, it's going to bring back that last deleted or removed object. So you can see we used it here as a perfect example. We've done a bunch of group movements, typed in oops, and our chair came back. So this can also be useful if you use it purposefully, deleting a bunch of objects that are in your way in one delete. So select a handful of objects, delete them, then you can go about hatching and doing other things in your drawing, and then you can just oops them back. Now, that's not necessarily the best way to do it. I would typically recommend using the isolate command. So if you right click on any objects, isolate and hide them, that's the better way of doing that. But in other cases, or in cases where you've accidentally deleted something and you want to bring them back, oops is a great command. Now let's move it along to the change space command. Change space is one that is going to allow you to instantly and quickly move objects from model space into paper space or layout space, and from layout space back into model space. So this is a lifesaver and one that I learned a long time ago, but I'm always surprised when newer users don't use or know it. Change space is just that. It's changing your workspace objects from one space to another. So you can see I've got nothing in my layout space here except for the title block itself. You can see here is the viewport. So if I double click within the viewport and say I want to bring this big list of notes into the paper space or layout space, because I'm going to be reusing it in all of my layouts, but I'm not necessarily going to be at this view. Maybe we'll be zoomed in on a room or panned to another area. So I want to move this to my layout. Simply activate your model space, select whatever object you want to bring into paper space, and type change space, CHSPACE. Hit enter, And you can see it's now in the layout space along with my title block. So I can move it all around. It's not in model space anymore. It completely shifts it from model space to paper space, and this works going the other way. And it's going to keep things the same size and scale as they were in the other space. So if I were zoomed in and this text was big, it would come in large. If you set up all your text in layout space at the size you want it to plot, and you change its space back into model space, it's going to keep that same size and orientation as it had in model space. This is a great time saver for a lot of reasons. I find it most useful for bringing notes or dimensions back and forth, depending on if I'm working on a detail and I need to add a bit of text that I don't want to show up in other model space views. I'll keep it in my layout. So it's a great way to switch between those if you ever need to change things up. Now we're already done 5 of the quick commands, and we're only at maybe 7 or 8 minutes. So we're going to breeze through the rest of these 5. But before we do that, if you haven't already, don't forget to check out my AutoCAD workflows and fundamentals course. It's packed full of tips like this, as well as the longer and more detailed workflows that I use in my day-to-day drafting life. Things like setting up and creating custom templates and title blocks, adding layers, using a layer standard, as well as things like adding and removing XREFs, setting up plans and details, layouts and sheets, as well as a lot of more detailed and customized tips and tricks along the way that are going to save you a ton of time. I also show you how to set up plots and publish and export your files to send them to your clients. So I'm sure you're going to get a ton out of this course. If you want to learn more and get it at a discounted price for viewers such as yourself, you can click the link down below for AutoCAD Workflows and Fundamentals course. All right, let's move on to tip number 6. All right, so in this one, we're looking at the LAYWALK or LAYWALK command. So you can activate that up top here under the layers flyout, and it's got little shoes looking like it's walking, or you can simply type in LAYWALK. Now, you could do a lot with this command, but the basics are that you can walk through the layers to see and kind of learn and explore what's set up and how it's set up in your drawing. So for new drawings, especially ones from someone you don't know or a client, this is a great way to kind of get a quick feel for what's in your drawing. You can also quickly purge layers that are unused and clean up your drawing. But the way I like to use it is to simply step through my layers to see what's on what layer. This also isolates everything, so you can do a quick check to see that everything is on the right layers, or clean things up, figure out which layers have nothing on them, which is nice to know, as well as just quickly see what's on all these XREF layers. So LAYWALK is one that is super useful. You can also uncheck this so that it doesn't revert back to the all of the layers being on. So you could just go into here, choose a handful of layers you do want to see, and then hit close. And it's just going to leave those set up like that. Now, in most cases, you're going to want to restore on exit, which will put all of your layers back on. But this is a great way to filter or isolate a handful of layers quickly, and that is using the LAYWALK command. Next up is just a simple command that I'm going to show you, and you can use in situations where it might make sense. For this drawing, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but the command is the regen auto command. You can type in regen auto and change this value to off, and all that is going to do is turn off the auto regeneration in AutoCAD. Now, this is super helpful for very large drawings where you have huge data sets or large imagery and XREFs within the drawing. This is particularly helpful in things like Civil 3D, where you have tons of dynamic objects and you don't necessarily want the whole screen and AutoCAD regenerating every time you're doing something like switching between layout and model space, zooming in and out, customizing your viewports, that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of use cases where you'd want to turn off the auto regen command. Basically, it's just going to keep everything in AutoCAD looking the way it does, and then when you type in regen, it'll update and refresh everything in your views and layouts and that kind of thing. So this can just save you some compute power if you're working with a large drawing that's kind of struggling on your computer. That's probably the most useful case for this one. Next up, as we get close to the end of the list, is one that I use almost consistently within my drawings, and that is the select similar command. This is a right-click command for the most part, but basically what it's going to do is select all of the objects with the similar properties, typically the layer and color, as the initial object you've selected. So if I select this room tag here, it's on the room or note room layer. So right clicking anywhere once you've selected an object and clicking select similar is going to select all of these similar objects in the workspace. So this is a great way to quickly grab all of these similar objects and move them to another layer, change some of their properties. You could change up their color, you could change up their styles or line types. This is also great if you're moving a ton of objects from model space to paper space, or you want to delete a ton of objects. You could do a select similar on a block and select all of those similar blocks and simply hit delete. Now they're all gone. You could also undo that by typing undo or oops a little bit later down the road. But that is the select similar command. Very quickly and briefly, it's going to select similar objects for you and add them to your selection set. All right, moving right along, we've got Control, Shift, and C. Now, this one may be a little bit more familiar to many users, but for those of you who it's not, this is a game changer, especially when it comes to copying objects from one drawing to another drawing. This is super useful. So if you want to copy objects from one drawing to another drawing, you can use the Control, Shift, and C command. This is the copy base command. You can also just type that in, copy base. What this is going to do is copy a specific amount of objects using a base point. Now, where this comes in handy is any type of drawing where you're using real world coordinates. So site plans, surveys, anything like that. Even architectural plans if you're in a real world coordinate system. What you can do is select a handful of objects, and XREFs are also included. So as a bonus tip here, you can simply copy XREFs from one drawing to another, and it's going to bring all of the location information as well as the path into that new one, so that that XREF is simply just existing in your new drawing. So you can see I've got a completely empty and blank drawing here. We're going to go into our existing drawing, and I'm going to select this XREF. I'm also going to use that select similar and select all of the magenta or purple line work here, select similar, and it's going to select all of my walls and my XREF. So now I've got a completely blank floor plan selected, and I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and C at the same time, and it's going to ask me for a base point. Now this is where it comes in handy if you want to keep everything in these same coordinates. So you can see the coordinates down below here. I'm going to type in 0, 0 as my base point. So that's just the 0, 0 point in your drawing. It doesn't matter where that is, but you're going to want to use it because the next step is going to come in handy. So use 0, 0 and hit enter. So you can see 1911 objects were copied. Now you can hit escape, you can do whatever you want in this drawing for a bit. It's copied onto your clipboard. We can switch over to our blank drawing one whenever we want. Hit Control and V, and then choose the 0, 0 insertion point. Now, we don't see anything now because we're not zoomed to wherever we just placed that, which would be in the same coordinates. So you could type in Z, enter, E, enter, and you're going to zoom extend. So you can see now that this XREF has been brought directly into our drawing and linked to the same path, and you can see that all our magenta or purple walls here have been brought in as well. So since it's now in the exact same location, any other XREFs that we would want to bring in to layer over, say an electrical plan or an HVAC or heating plan, those are going to overlay perfectly because this is in the exact same coordinates as our original office plan. Now, last but not least, we're going to move back into our viewport here, and we're going to use the VPCLIP command or the viewport clipping command. Now, this can be super useful if you're trying to organize and clean up your layouts, especially if you want to use multiple viewports in a drawing sheet here. So say you want to show the overall floor plan, but you'd also like a viewport over here showing, like, say, a zoomed in or blown up version of one of these rooms, as say the typical office layout. You can accomplish that a handful of different ways, but if you've already got a viewport set up, you can simply draw a polyline or polygon in the shape of what you'd like your viewport to look like. So I'd like it to be like this, turn that off. So say I'd like my viewport to look like this odd shape here, kind of following it along. Now, again, this doesn't really make a difference what it looks like. It could even be a circle or an oval. All you need to do is type in the VPCLIP command, hit enter, and it's going to need you to select your original viewport, which is this purple line here, and then choose a clipping object. This could be kind of any shape. Just select it by clicking on the object, and it's now automatically clipped our viewport to be the size and shape of the polygon or polyline we chose. Now that polyline has to be closed, so you need to connect the ends at the end. You can do that by using the PE for P-edit, polyline edit, and just typing C for close to make sure that it's closed. But that is how you can quickly and easily adjust the size and shape of your viewport. Now this can be super useful, like I mentioned, if you want multiple viewports or you want to have kind of different shapes and clipped sizes all around your layout. But that's all for today's video. I hope these 10 tips are going to save you a ton of time. If you'd like to learn more, don't forget to check out my AutoCAD Fundamentals and Workflows course. I'm going to put that link down below and up above, and it's discounted for all of you viewers. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit subscribe so you get new videos every week. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, and cheers.